Our story today is called Loose Tooth. It is written by Stephen Kroll and illustrated by Trisha Tusa. So our title page, Loose Tooth by Stephen Kroll, illustrated. The illustrator draws the pictures, and her name is Trisha Tusa. Fangs and Flapper were twins. Everything they did together. When Fangs soared through the night sky, Flapper soared after him. When Flapper read, Fangs read too. And when the other bats played football, Fangs and Flapper always joined them. One day in the middle of reading class, Fangs discovered he had a loose tooth. He felt the tooth with his tongue, and it was very wiggly. After class, Fangs showed Flipper, and then he showed his friends. "Wow," said Lizzie Lizard, "that tooth's going to fall out any minute." "You'll get lots of money from the Tooth Fairy when it does," said Henry Hawk. Flapper felt around in his own mouth. He wanted to have a loose tooth like Fangs, but he didn't have one. At recess, all the other animals crowded around Fangs and his loose tooth. Fangs was delighted. Every time someone came up to look, he did the loop-de-loop around the schoolyard. The whole time Flapper hung from the jungle gym. No one paid any attention to him at all. That night at dinner, the tooth was looser. "Be careful how you bite, dear," said Mother. "You don't want to swallow it, Fangs," said Dad. "I got 100 on my spelling test," said Flapper. But nobody paid any attention. They were too busy looking at Fangs. Fangs bit down on a piece of bread, and suddenly his tooth popped out of his mouth and into his soup. Fangs was frantic. "Where is it?" he shouted. "I can't see it." "It's got to be in there somewhere," said Mom, and they all flapped around the bowl. Dad stuck in a claw and pulled out the tooth. "Hooray!" shouted Fangs. "Hooray!" shouted Dad. "And the Tooth Fairy comes tonight," said Mom. "I bet she's ugly," said Flapper, and nobody even heard him. After several family swoops around the neighborhood, it was time for bed. "Remember, the Tooth Fairy only comes when you're asleep," said Dad. "I'm going to sleep now," said Fangs. He put the tooth on the ledge beside him. He went to sleep smiling. Nearby, Flapper hung frowning in the dark. "Fangs has been getting all the attention," he thought. "I'm sick of it. I'm going to steal that stupid tooth." Quietly, he flew over to Fangs. Carefully, he slipped the tooth off the ledge, and then he glided gently to the ground. Now, where could he hide that tooth? He didn't even have pockets. He flew to the kitchen. Mom was already there. She was mixing batter for some muffins. Flapper was so surprised to see her, he dropped the tooth. Plop! It fell into the batter. Flapper didn't know what to do. He hit on the ceiling. Mom was so busy working, she hadn't noticed a thing. She finished mixing the batter and popped the muffins into the oven. "Oh no," thought Flapper, "the tooth is in a muffin." Mom waited until the muffins were done, and then she flew back to her corner of the cave. When Flapper was sure she wouldn't hear him, he glided back to his spot. But he couldn't sleep. Much later, he heard the flapping of wings near Fangs, followed by some grumbling. "It must be the Tooth Fairy," he thought, as he finally dozed off. In the morning, Flapper was stretching his wings when he heard Fangs screech, "The Tooth Fairy took my tooth and didn't leave me any money." Flapper shrugged. At breakfast, everyone was confused. "I'm sure the Tooth Fairy came," said Mom. "She probably couldn't find your tooth." "But I left it for her," said Fangs. "Maybe it fell on the ground," said Dad. "It didn't," said Fangs. "I looked." Flapper was so much too worried to say anything. He tried 2 muffins. No tooth. Any minute somebody would... "Ouch," said Mom, and she pulled out a piece of muffin from her mouth. In it was the missing tooth. "My tooth," said Fangs. "Oh, goodness," said Mom. "How did that get into the muffins?" asked Dad. Flapper wiggled his wings nervously. Everyone looked at him. He knew he had to tell the truth. When Flapper had told the whole story, Dad said, "Fangs, I'm giving you the quarter the Tooth Fairy would have left. But Flapper, I'm giving you a quarter too. We shouldn't have ignored you." Flapper looked at Fangs, and Fangs looked at Flapper. "You know what?" said Flapper. "What?" said Fangs. "My tooth feels loose." "It does," said Fangs. "How terrific. Let's go show our friends." And the two of them flew off together. The end. And that was the story of the loose tooth. I hope you like it.